Hello, everyone. Good afternoon for those in Europe. Good morning for those in Americas, and good evening for those in Asia. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Can you just give me a feedback whether the audio and video is working fine in the chat? Okay, thanks Clovis for the feedback. Thanks Philip. We just returned from Sigfox Operator Days in Americas, in Mexico City, which was really wonderful. A lot of people participating in the SO days and also in the following exhibition. So we are a little bit jet lagged, but I think we'll do fine. Costa Rica is in. So good morning to Costa Rica. You have 7 o'clock in the morning. Also, all the slides and recording will be available just after the presentation, just after the webinar, so you can share it with your team, and you can see the recording of it as well. Okay, let's start. Again, good afternoon. We have Japan coming in. Okay, welcome, Japan. Good afternoon. Let's just introduce myself very shortly, and why I think we have a little bit of qualification to speak about mistakes in IoT cells and how to avoid them. The webinar will have a format that I'll be talking about 30 minutes, and then I would love to leave 15 minutes for your question and answers. It will be not, this one is really sales oriented. It's nothing about sensors, nothing about the technology. So this is pure sales methodology and sales approaches. I would love really to leave a big space for your question and answers and to share your experience. Just a little bit to my background. I started doing internet and web and business consulting and Ministry of Foreign Affairs a long time ago, launching basically the first website of the Czech Republic and doing consultancy how to use internet when nobody knew about internet. Then at Microsoft, I was battling Netscape and was basically doing the big wave of shift towards internet. Then I founded a web portal with a total of like 20 or 30 services, being active in 3 countries. I exited nicely from this project. Then I was doing a change management company, migrating big corporations to Google Cloud and Google Apps. So I had a huge interaction, very close interaction, both with Microsoft and with Google. Then in 2014, basically 5 years ago, I started engagement with Sigfox when Honza, my business partner, at the time at T-Systems at T-Mobile, got me the know-how and got me into the Sigfox thing. And I am with Sigfox since 5 years. And I'm a co-owner of operators in 7 countries currently: Switzerland, Austria, Liechtenstein, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Romania, and we are looking at some more countries. And basically, 1 year ago, I bought out from the group the hardware division, and 80% of my time I am dedicated to the SimpleHW company. So I have talked with really hundreds of customers. I have seen hundreds of POCs, hundreds of projects. So I have not a theoretical approach, but I have really deep field experience installing the devices, going into the shafts, going into the factories, seeing the customers. So this presentation, or this what I'm trying to give you, is not a theory; it's a practical experience that I have lived through in the past 5 years. Maybe one of the things when I am supposed to present what IoT is to people who doesn't know anything about IoT, I really like to have a parallel or parable which describe IoT as a human body. The classical internet as we know it, with the big data, with the visualization, social media, Facebooks, Gmail, etc. It's the head. That's the head of the head of the human body. But the head doesn't know anything about the physical world around it. So we need sensors. We need touch. We need temperature. We need hear. We need smell. We need sight. And basically, those are the IoT devices that bring the data, the information about the physical world to the big head. And in order to get those information from the sensors, from your body into the head, you need nerve lines. And basically, that's what is Sigfox about. Sigfox is nothing more than the nerve lines bringing the signal, bringing the information from the peripherals, from your sensors to the big head. And basically, it's the same thing as your physical body. Your sensors are not supposed to send information all the time. You don't sense the temperature of your toe, or you don't feel the touches all the time. You feel only the pain or the touches or the temperature when there are some kind of extremes. So in the same way, the sensors, the IoT devices need to be smart and need to transfer information only in the cases when there is a need for it, or when there's a threshold, or it doesn't make sense to measure temperature each minute. It makes sense to measure the temperature when there's only a change in the temperature. So the same way as our devices, as our sensors are smart, IoT devices need to be smart, not to overload not only the nerves, but not to overload the head as well. Because if the head would have to process all the sensors all the time, you would kill it. And the same way, IoT devices and IoT needs to be smart. And so IoT, it's important to understand the same way as internet. In most cases, it's not about technology. Internet is about changes in social behavior, and changes in business behavior. So the same way, IoT is not about technology. IoT is just a pure digital transformation, whereby better knowledge of the physical world, you are able to do better decisions, you are able to achieve better security, to offer new services, or to save the environment. So again, IoT, please remember, IoT is not about technology. IoT is about digital transformation. I have a press slide. Basically, it's not a thought, but I think that the major fails, or the major skews that we have, is that we all love gadgets. I think that Czech Republic and Japan are the other countries where the gadgets are most beloved, but they are beloved in all the countries. And IoT sometimes, or our understanding of IoT is that we are too often concentrated on the gadgetry. And why? Because it's cool. You know, if you have a sensor and you give a sensor to someone, you can show him, oh, here you can put it into your room and it measures your temperature, it measures your door opening. See how cool it is. Then, okay, but that's not what IoT is about, you know, that we always think that if I love it, the others must love it as well. And also, it's an issue that when you give, for instance, the sensor to someone, in some simple pack to someone, and you tell them it can do so many things, it's so cool. It lasts on the battery for a long time, or you don't need to configure it. It's still IoT. It's not about gadgetry, and we should avoid gadgetry at all costs. Because we have a tendency to show off. We think that if we bring the device to the customer and it works, so the customer is sold. He must love it the same way as we love it. He must think it's cool, and he'll give us a project in the worth of millions of dollars. But that's not the case. So please limit the gadgetry. Please limit giving away the devices as much as possible, because most of the gadgets not only end up in the drawers and are never being used, or in the worst case they don't work and all the people are not happy with it because of the coverage, because of the battery life, and they think that all the devices work like that, so they forget about the project. So please don't do the gadgetry. We did a lot of it in the past as well, so it's not that I would be immune against it. And I still have tendency to come to the customer and to show them, oh, you just put it on the pallet and you can see the position. But it's never has led to any sale, so please don't do the gadgetry. So the first failure that I think that we all of us do is that we are shy to ask deeply and to say no. Basically, we are so much we are hunting any of the cases, or we are so happy that the customers comes us and want something in the field of IoT, or he's interested in IoT, that we have a tendency to say, oh, it's a cool project, it's interesting, let's do it. So what I really suggest is to differentiate, because all of us, the Sigfox operators, the integrators, the platforms, we have limited resources. We don't have unlimited resources. Most of us, we are not corporations of thousands of people. We don't have teams of tens of salespeople. So we really need to keep focus in order to be profitable. And we need to do proper qualification. The classical band qualification, as all of us know it, the budget, authority, need, and time, is a little bit outdated because of the challenger sales. Very often you have a customer that, especially if you are proactive, and you come to the customer, so they not always have the need. You are just looking for the need with the customer. But still, it gives you at least the basics, how serious the customer is about the case, about the project. Because very often the customers, even the customers, they love the gadgetry. They love to know something. They love to play with the devices. And we need to be aware when the customer is really serious, and we need to distinguish between them. So budget, I think, would be the most thing that we are afraid to talk about. We are afraid to talk about the cost of the Sigfox connectivity. We are afraid to talk about the cost of the device installation, about the cost of the device themselves, the cost of the project management, the cost of the integration. And please don't remember that the cost of devices is just 15% of the total cost of ownership, and cost of the connectivity is also another 15% of the total cost of ownership. So the overall budget of the project can be really huge, and we really need to talk to the customer. Do you have the budget? Do you have the pre-approval for the budget? Are you aware this will cost so much and so much? Very early in the process. Unless they have budget, it doesn't make any sense to talk to them any further. The other thing is, of course, the authority. Ask, and we have seen many cases when you were talking with IT department, or we were talking with IoT guys, and they were excited about the project, but it was clear that they don't have proper authority, and they don't have budget approvals for that. So please inquire about the authority of the person you are talking to. Always ask about the reason of the project, because, and we'll get to it a little bit later on as well, but the need is not, I need to track the devices. the need is I need to track the pallets. The need is I need to lower the cost. I need to bring new service into the market. I need to acquire new customers. I need to retain customers. Those are the business needs. Business needs is not I need to track. Tracking itself or measuring temperature itself, measuring inclination, this is not a business need. Time set specific timing and milestone. Very often the customer, I want just to see how IoT works and what it can bring to my company. So unless you have a specific project and specific milestone, I wouldn't commit my sales resources to do it. Also, when we are here talking about focus, very often when you come to a customer, so they have tens of different use cases, especially if you come to big corporation. I really recommend to choose just one, maybe the simplest one, and to test their commitment on the simplest and maybe the cheapest one, not to do the most complicated as the first phase of the project. So please keep focus one step at a time. Don't do 5 projects at the same time with the customer, because otherwise it will kill any relationship. And basically those are the criteria. When we are trying to qualify the customer, we need to be sure that the customer is comfortable with the pricing. So it must be within and again, it's the total cost of ownership. It's not only the devices plus connectivity, the total cost of ownership. So we must be sure that the pricing is not beyond their expectations. The prospect has authority. Either he is really the decision maker who can make the decision, or at least the decision maker is aware that the prospect is doing research about it. So that is quite clear. And the need is there when a customer has a big challenge. So this is one of the I would say most complicated things in the IoT sales, because for IoT is for most of the companies it's not a critical thing. It's not a SAP, or it's not their accounting. It's not their major logistics system. IoT for them is additional services, cutting costs, increasing revenues, but it's not a critical system sales. So for them, IoT will always be, for big corporation, IoT will be till it becomes something as internet is nowadays. So until now, IoT for them is a nice to have thing, which is always more difficult to sell than the basic systems that normally the customers are running with. So be aware that the need needs to be really well defined and well calculated. And we also recommend for the timing, it depends project by project, but you should always set ahead a timing, a timeline, and milestones. We normally don't do projects that are where the customer is not interested to proceed within 3 months. So 3 months would be the maximum at least first step. So at least if they really need to do POC, it needs to be done within 3 months. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to do a big sales to the customer. So what to do with the long tail? Because there are a lot of customers who fail or who don't pass the band, who don't pass the qualification. We recommend definitely to keep them in CRM because they are prospects, they are leads. And we recommend doing basically 2 things. One is give them to partners. If you have a partner network, so give those leads to the partners to work on them further, to expand on them. That's one thing. And second one is keep the leads in the CRM and do the lead nurturing or drip marketing. So basically send them newsletters, send them news, send them new use cases, so they can see that the IoT expanding, IoT is serious, and maybe they'll come with a project for which they would qualify. And we also recommend doing a refresh call each trimester. So doing an active down call to the customer if something has changed or has not changed, it's always a good reminder. And we as Sigfox operators or integrators, we should definitely do far more active engagement of the customers than we are currently doing. The second, beside qualification, the second biggest mistake I think is that we fail to onboard and engage partners and go with them. I talked with a couple of people in Latin or in Americas about that as well. Many of the customers, very often what I have seen is that SOs, Sigfox operators, they go into the accounts and they go on their own. They go into the accounts without consultancy, without partners. We really recommend not to let the integration completely up to the customer, but really bring in the partners. I know it's complicated. I know it's not easy. I know it needs coordination and engagement of the partners. But the issue with most of the projects that we have seen is that the big corporations, they need like a daily contact. And we as integrators or Sigfox operators, we don't have enough sales force to be in daily contact with and to do the customer engagement. So the integrators or the consultancies or even startups, they are there not that much for their knowledge, even the knowledge is important, but they are really to do the real sales process, to do the real sales engagement, to do the legal stuff, to do the project management, because otherwise if we leave the project management or the stuff to the big corporations themselves, it drags and drags for months and it's very complicated. So please engage integrators, consultants very early in the sales process, because that I think it's quite critical. Third, and that's a remark that my colleague Václav Veselý had, is that we are shy to ask customers to get serious. So again, we are too timid. We are too timid to go to the customer, to challenge them, and to say who are the stakeholders, who will be on the project, who is the legal staff, who will do the, is the board of directors. Does the board of directors need to approve the projects? How is the involvement of the IT department? How is the involvement of your logistics departments? So please do a stakeholder approval and integration mapping with the customer. That's quite important. I know it should be done with the partner, but if you don't have a partner, do it yourself. Sit down with your customer and do the stakeholder mapping. Because I have seen too many projects that when even the POC was fine, but finally, for instance, the legal department said, no, I'm not going to approve it because of the liabilities, etc., etc. So do the stakeholder mapping as soon as possible in the sales process. It's a little bit part already of the discovery phase, where we are here. And that's a classical example. The discovery is basically a time where you should sit down with the customer for several hours. It's not a 20 or 30 minutes engagement. It's really a several hours workshop where you should talk with the customer and you should clearly define what is the business case, do the quantification of the TCO and ROI, do the quantification of what data they need to get out of the project, what are the business processes that need to tackle, what devices they will use, what will be the logistics of the devices, where they will be stored, how they will be installed, how they will be decommissioned. And also, not at least because, again, IoT in most of the cases about change management, so change of behavior of the people, change of behavior of the companies. Don't forget about the change management stuff and legal. So what kind of training people will need to do, what kind of documentation, what kind of changes in the business processes, changes in handling the customers will need to be done. So this should be really defined very early on in the project, even before starting to talk about any POC. Please sit down, because 80% is really preparation and 20% is execution. So sit down with the customer and do proper discovery before doing any gadgetry or any POC. And when I was talking about the changer cells, the classical spin selling and changer cells, we think we are far more in the spin selling is the classical selling, how you sell the cars and the pens, where you are asking the customer whether he has the need and he is interested, and whether we are solving any of his problems. With IoT, very often we need to be a little more on the challenger side, on the challenger cell side. I will add some to the presentation. I will add some links to the literature you can read about the challenger cells, where basically we are the ones going to the customer and telling them how they should improve. So we are in the role of business consultants, and that's what most of the customers expect from us. When we go to the corporation, they think we are the experts about IoT, and they want to hear what IoT can bring to them. So we must be the challengers, and we must tell them those are the business processes that can be improved, and that where you can cut cost or increase revenues. So we need to be the challengers. The fifth, and it's hard to tell which one is bigger or worse, but we have seen so many POCs without any acceptance criteria. That's kind of hard to imagine. We love to do POCs because we love to show off again. We love to oh, please do a POC, put it on 5 pellets and let's see that we can really track it, because we don't trust ourselves. We should trust definitely ourselves more. We should trust ourselves more with the coverage. We should trust ourselves more with the devices. So we want, by doing a POC, we want to improve our trustfulness. But I think that we should improve our trustfulness not in the POC, but in the discovery. The discovery is far more important than the POC. And also we should definitely be aware whether it's a proof of concept, whether it's a proof of value, or whether it's a solution validation. There are different concepts. Basically, proof of concept is where we are testing the technical stuff or the coverage. Proof of value, where we are really calculating whether you will cut you would cut the cost, whether you would cut or improve the revenue. And the solution validation is basically the most difficult one. When the solution is basically done, everything is done, and you are doing just before field deployment. You are validating whether all the criteria or whether all the variables are there. And when you do a POC, so you should define the criteria. There are many criteria, so there are many things that you can try to do in a POC. But definitely you need to qualify them. So it's not something that you say when you would say, oh, we are going to test coverage. So all the criteria must be qualified. You must say 95% of the devices will be getting 96% of the messages most of the time. 2 devices, it can happen that 2 devices will not work at all. It can happen that 2 devices will get lost, etc. So please define each of this stuff quantify all those criteria as close as possible before starting the POC. Don't do the quantification after the POC. And very often you have also soft criteria. So even for soft criteria, if you do focus groups, or if you do form evaluation about the design, about the pricing, for instance, so even the soft criteria should be quantified, and you should see the results out of the form should be 8 out of 10, or should be the focus group should have a positive attitude towards the product. We have far more information about both basically qualification, discovery, and POC definitions in our online document. If you go to the SimpleHW.eu to our website in the download section, so we have far more questions and far more detailed documents. So we recommend going through this, not using only this presentation. And again, I will include the referrals to these documents in this presentation. POC, again, what we have very often, there are no fixed timeline. So the company will start doing pallet tracking, and they don't tell, I need to do pallet tracking for 4 weeks, and I will do evaluation for 1 week, and then we will do assessment in 1 week, and we will decide in 6 weeks. Very rarely I have seen a defined timelines for a POC. So please do a fixed timeline. Resources commitments, again, especially if you do some large scale POC, a lot of people needs to be involved. So if you do employee testing, if you do integration work with their IT systems, you need to have commitments from your partner or from the customer that they are ready to not only pay for because most of the POC should be paid for. So they not only would pay for the devices or for the connectivity or for the deployment, but they need to commit their internal human resources for the project. Definitely, the question should be how far the integration should be, so how much the project should be already integrated into their IT systems. Very often we have seen a total lack of definition of change management definition. So was what kind of business processes, what kind of customer relationship needs to be changed, how they will be changed, how will be the user documentation, how the users will be trained. So very often the POC fail not because of the coverage or because of the devices, but we have seen so many failed POCs because the people were not properly trained, but they were not properly informed about the devices, about their functionality, that change management is definitely a must. Don't forget about legal matters. That's quite important. And evaluation process. So basically, before doing a POC, you should define who will be doing the evaluation, what will be the criteria, and what will be the next steps after the POC. Because basically, even before POC, the legal framework should be clear and should be ready, and POC should be just confirming. Basically, it's like if you do a due diligence. So you have already the legal framework ready, and you are just confirming the facts. So POC would be also confirming the facts, and you should go into field deployment basically within weeks or within months after doing a POC, and not to wait another year or to what we have seen in so many cases. And for the POC, also not forget about sunset, decommissioning of the emails, decommissioning of the devices. Very often we forget about proper closure of the POC. And sixth failure is not using final products in POC. So again, we have seen so many usage of Sensits for a POC. So the Sensit works, it measures the temperature, it measures the movement, but you are not able to do a field deployment with Sensit. So what we really recommend is to do a POC with a final product. And because very often when you are introducing a new product after the first POC, you need to reduce the POC, so you need to reduce the whole project. So please concentrate on not using prototypes, Arduino-based things, etc., but really use a final product. So the gap between the POC and the field deployment is as short as possible. The seventh failure is that we are relying too much on customer integrator proactivity. Basically, it's one of the reasons for that is limitation of our sales resources. But again, if the sales force is organized properly, we should be able to engage with the top 10 projects or top 20 projects. We should be able to engage several times in a week, and we often don't do that. For each meeting, for each step, we should define next steps. What will happen next? So what are the next steps they are expecting either from us or from the customer or from the partner? And in this engagement phase, we are also improving the trust building. So we are sending them use cases. We are sending them more materials. But we are too often waiting for the customers, waiting for their partners, waiting for their proactivity. And unfortunately, because again, IoT is not a critical sales, it's a nice to have sales, we fail because we don't push enough. So definitely we need sales team to push enough, and to spend far more time with the customers and less times in the meetings. So those were the I would say the 7 biggest mistakes we have seen so far in the IoT sales. Here are then some remarks or how you call it in English, the last part of the presentation, some common mistakes. When we go to the customer, we are talking about IoT as a technology. Please don't talk about IoT as a technology. Talk about it as a digital transformation. The same way as we don't go to the customer and talk about cloud services as technology, but we talk about its like security, cutting down the cost, improving reliability. Those are the themes that customers want to hear about cloud services. They don't want to hear about containers and microservices, etc. So the same way we should talk to the customers about digital transformation, sensing the physical world, bringing the physical world and the detailed information into the business processes. And let's not talk to them about narrow band, 8 bits, 12 bytes, whatever we have. The same thing, what we recommend is not talking Sigfox directly, but to talk IoT in general, because we all know that Sigfox it's a great technology, but it applies only for a small fraction of the use cases. So we prefer to talk about IoT in general, and then to find and pinpoint the use cases where Sigfox can be used. And we should be pretty well aware of all those technologies. So you should be able to know what Zigbee and Z-Wave is, what is the difference between Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, what is the difference between LoRa and NB-IoT. Those are the things that we should know, and we should clearly tell the customer, if you want to control a factory, go with a LoRa solution. If you want to do a payment terminal, go with a narrowband IoT. We should be frank with the customers, and we should be talking general IoT. And again, use Sigfox where it makes sense. Don't push Sigfox everywhere. Don't be dragged into the LoRa and NB-IoT discussion. We have seen since 5 years, I have never lost a case against LoRa or NB-IoT. We have never lost any case. LoRa and NB-IoT in most cases is just pure PR and taking the focus or attention of the customers. So try to avoid this discussion. Tell them, LoRa is a great technology, and narrowband IoT is a great technology. They apply to this field, and we have a nice example when we are taking our mobile phones, and I'm telling the mobile phone. Also, currently, the mobile phone contains 5 different radio technologies. The same way, IoT will contain many technologies because each of the technology is suitable or it's good for something else. So really, don't spend the long narrowband IoT or LoRa discussion. Spend far more time in ROI and TCO calculations and discussions. That's far more relevant to the customer than the technology. The other thing that we have seen, especially with new SOs, is relying too much on friends and family. It's of course very important and good to engage it, but relying purely on them, it's not the best way forward. We think that everyone, as we are excited about IoT, that everyone else needs to be excited. It's not always the case. Most of the people are excited more about profit than about IoT. So changing the world. So even if you would engage friends and family, I would say 20-30% of your sales will come from that. The rest will be coming either from the incoming leads or from your proactive sales. And I have 3 last points, and that's about sales education, where we are trying to help a little bit. And that's basically the sales is not trained properly for most of the SOs or even the integrators about IoT. So sales, even Sigfox is doing some kind of onboarding, and they have this academy. So I think that we should do far better in talking to sales about IoT and various technologies. I'm thinking doing one more webinar regarding the comparison between the LoRa and NB-IoT, Zigbee, Z-Wave, gateways, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. So those technologies that are relevant. We think that sales, it doesn't need to be deep technical, but the sales should understand the basic concept behind those technologies. So in this field, we'll have one more training for it. Sales not knowing basics of sensors. We have done already a webinar. Our first webinar was about the sensors, so please watch the webinar recording on YouTube. If you would need more information about the sensors, that would definitely, we would definitely do a new series or a recording of it. And the last thing that I'm pushing a lot, and that I have not talked a lot about it today, is the basics of verticals, because I am deeply convinced that sales needs to be vertically aligned and needs to be focused on each of the vertical. Because again, we are coming into the corporation not as technology consultants, but digital transformation consultants. And we need to know the basics of each of the verticals. So there's a vertical insurance, there's a vertical utilities, there's a vertical water measurement, there's a vertical logistics, there's a vertical cold chain monitoring. And sales needs to have the basic know-how. It doesn't need to have the very deep know-how about the insurance or very deep know-how about the cold chain monitoring, but should know at least what drives the customers, what are main issues, what are the main regulations. So for each vertical, we should have a training. We have prepared one, and we'll be doing a training for the insurance vertical, and we have prepared even the sales kit for vertical. So it will be one of our next webinars. We are also working on the cold chain monitoring webinar that will be coming in September, and I hope that Sigfox itself will bring in finally the logistics or the industrial packaging webinar or training materials. So again, I think that the sales force is better organized, not by geography or not by size of the customer, but sales should be organized definitely by vertical, and we should have far more vertical know-how inside the ecosystem than we currently have. So that's how are we time-wise. Time-wise, I was a little bit long by 10 minutes. That's all from my side. The recording will be available just after this webinar, as well as the PowerPoint or as the slides. And I am here for any questions, remarks, your experience, if you have any. If it also, I would like to hear whether it did make any sense for you. If it was anyhow useful. Also, the concrete questions. Also, the concrete questions that you should be asking with the customers are in the download section of our website. So please really go to the download section, download the checklist for qualification, discovery, and POC. We have one general one, and then we have one specialized one for logistics. So please download both of those documents. They are not to be given away to the customer, but it's basically a checklist that your sales team should be going through, and those are the questions that should be asked. Again, if you have any more inspiration or how we should improve those documents, we will gladly listen to that. Thanks for the praise so far. I would love to hear also any criticism. I know my slides are not the prettiest one. I am not a big graphic artist. I will have to improve on that one. Thanks for the praise, Jorge and Victor and Guillaume and Clovis. Also, if you have any more themes you would like to hear from us, we are open to suggestions. The next insight will be about the insurance company, about the verticals, and then the last one before holiday will be about the Lego boxes, and why we think that the Lego boxes are better than the plastics or the Lego bricks or the glued together castles. So this will be kind of interesting, I think. We have also added a premium webinar next week because we have seen a huge interest lately in Czechfox. So we have added a webinar on Thursday next week about the Czechfox, or basic presentation about Czechfox, the Sigfox measurement tool. Very good. What's the minimum time that you suggest for a POC? It depends totally. POC depends totally on what are your expectations in POC. So what we recommend is trying not to do a POC at all. So try to avoid POC. I know it's very difficult because the customer very often asks for it, and also we want to show off. Basically delay the POC as far in the or as late in the process as possible. And it depends what you want to test in the POC. So the POC can be 2 weeks if you want to test coverage, if you want to test functionality in one storage room, or commuting between 2 points. But it can also last for 6 to 8 weeks if you want to do. If you need to get end user feedback, if you want to do focus group, if you need to do training. One of the things that we are also thinking of, and that's a little bit secret, that we are, there's this IoFrog platform, and because we have used IoFrog in several of the POCs, so we are thinking of bringing basically a POC in a box for any device, not only for our devices, but for all devices. So you would have like an all-inclusive platform where we would be doing, where you can run a POC together with device management, performance evaluation, support, knowledge base. So POC in a box, something that we are currently working at. Your slides are nice, clear and clean. Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for the help. Do you charge your POC? Does it depend on customer you are dealing with? We try to charge for POCs. Basically, the main reason for charging for POC is because you have more engagement from the customer when they pay for something, when they receive it free of charge. But of course, if you need to have the name in your list of the names of the customers you are working with, sometimes you can do an exception. The same way as we are selling the devices, even for POCs, we are selling them. We are not giving them away away free of charge. But we just had a customer that was a big name, and he asked to get them free of charge. So we gave away them free of charge, 20 of them. But it was only because the name of the brand was so big that we didn't want to lose it. But it's and I'm not sure whether I did the right thing. So I really recommend pushing for a paid POC, at least to cover the cost and to get the customer engaged. Do you charge more for the POC than for production? It depends what you charge for in a POC. I have somewhere, maybe we could share a calculation for a POC, because the major cost for a POC is project management. So the cost of connectivity, it can be free of charge. there's a big debate whether the POC connectivity for POC should be charged or whether it shouldn't be. I think it doesn't make that much sense to charge for connectivity, because if you have 100 devices being used for 2 months, it doesn't make that much sense to charge for the connectivity. It makes sense to charge for the devices, but the main cost for a POC is project management and integration, evaluation, so man days basically. And we charge the same man days for the POC as for the field deployment. So if you would, if Guillaume, if you would refine the question, I would, what do you mean whether we charge the same for POC? Or Mark was also asking whether we charge more for the POC than for production. I think it makes sense not to make profit on POC, but it makes sense definitely to at least to cover the costs. And again, we need to trust ourselves far more than we are. We are too timid. We are too timid to go to the customer and ask them, what is the business case? What are your costs? What it will bring to your company? So please trust ourselves as far more, because Sigfox is really a great technology and it really works. So I'll take one last question, and if there are no more questions, thanks for your attention, and let's see each other who would be interested in the insurance company use cases next week, or in the Czechfox use cases next week, and definitely please attend the Lego Boxes webinar, which is coming the week after. Thanks for your attention, and have a beautiful morning or afternoon or evening according to your time zone. Bye-bye. I'm giving you one more, the logistics for the, yeah, you wanted the, I will give you I will give you the URL for the downloads. Here are the downloads. You can see all the data sheets and everything, and in the middle you have the two checklists. One is the general checklist for discovery, qualification, discovery, and POC, and the other is the logistics, the specialized one for logistics. So please, it's far more detailed than those slides, and I think it's helpful. Can you see the URL? It's in the download section. Yes. Okay. Thanks again. We are also having social networks, so please be engaged on the, if you want to subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter channels. It would please our marketing, because marketing is trying to do a great job on the social media sites as well. So please subscribe to our media channels, social channels. It will please them. So thank you once more, and have a nice weekend ahead of us.